I met the subject of my next interview, Elizabeth Stoltz, when she applied for a scholarship from the New York Women in Communications Foundation in 2009. She was a high school senior from York, Pennsylvania at the time. And one of the things that impressed me was that she'd founded a nonprofit organization called Food for Thought to help improve the lives of children around the world. In fact, she was the only student ever to graduate from her high school with more than 500 hours of community service. Starting to sound familiar? Today, she's a sophomore majoring in integrated marketing communications at Ithaca College. I talked with Elizabeth before the spring term started. Elizabeth, it all started during your sophomore year in high school with an article you read in Cosmo Girl about the opportunity for some American teens to go on a mission to Africa. How do we get from you, thumbing through a magazine, to the foundation of Food for Thought?
For some reason, this article just really grabbed my attention, but just because of the timing of things, and it wasn't really possible for me to pack up and leave for Africa right then, I started to think about what were some ways that I could help here at home, but still provide some sort of relief to the children that I would have been working with had I been able to go on the mission trip. So that's when I started to read a lot more online about some of the different issues and crises that were facing Africa, and it was really a new world for me. It was something that I never looked into before, but for some reason I kept rereading articles about childhood malnutrition, and that's really what captured my attention. And in reading about childhood malnutrition, I came across Plumpy Nut, which is a peanut-based therapeutic food that's used to treat children who suffer from the most severe form of acute malnutrition. And for one, the name Plumpy Nut just really stuck with me, and it stuck with a lot of people, it seems. And it just seemed like such a useful tool that I had never heard about, but it seemed to be the perfect answer to relief for these children. So after reading about Plumpy Nut and the amazing work that it was doing around the world, and it was still relatively new at that time, back in 2007, I decided that I would host a charity walk for Plumpy Nut. And from there, it's been, 4 years now, and we're still doing the walk for Plumpy Nut. So it went from a Cosmo Girl article to the founding of a nonprofit organization.
How has Food for Thought evolved over the years?
After hosting the first walk for Plumpy Nut, I really thought it would just be a short-term one event and then done. But I really had never anticipated the community response from our first walk. And just because I wasn't really prepared for all the work that went into hosting a walk, we had parents or family members writing check to my parents because Food for Thought didn't exist yet. So it was just really a personal effort. And then after I saw how great the response was to our first walk, my friends and I started talking, and we were thinking we should actually make this legitimate. This is a really great event that went over really well. We need to do more with this. So that's when my friends and my family and I said we could make this something legitimate, and that's when Food for Thought came about. So Food for Thought, now 4 years later, is a nonprofit organization dedicated to improving the lives of children around the world. We've since expanded our mission of just working for childhood malnutrition relief, and we're now working for children who are affected by lack of education, the effects of poverty, and still malnutrition. So we do several events a year now, and the Walk for Plumpy Nut is still the hallmark of our organization. We've hosted that every year, and since we've raised over $16,000 to purchase Plumpy Nut.
How many children does that amount of money feed, Elizabeth?
That's been enough to feed over 1,000 children. The way that Plumpy Nut works is a child who suffers from malnutrition is fed 2 packets of Plumpy Nut a day for 2 to 3 weeks, and that's enough to get them reacclimated to proper feeding system and to start taking in even more of the nutrients that their body needs.
Your organization has benefited children in Ethiopia. You finally got a chance to get on the ground in Ethiopia the summer after your freshman year at Ithaca. What impact did your experiences there have on your whole philanthropic effort?
Going to Ethiopia was a life-changing opportunity. Hopefully not once in a lifetime. I'm hoping to definitely return, but it provided so much inspiration for me. When I started the Walk for Plumpy Nut, for some reason I was constantly drawn to Ethiopia. The country had suffered so much from the effects of childhood malnutrition, so they were the obvious recipient of the funds from the walk, but actually being able to go over there and to hold the hands of Ethiopian children and to work in a classroom with them, it was just everything that we had been working for the past couple of years come to life. I really had no idea what to expect in terms of living conditions, but I was just blown away by the generosity of the doctors that I worked with and the smiles of the kids and just the sights and sounds of the country. I'm so excited to go back again. I'm hoping to work there for several years to come, and oh my gosh, it was just a life-changing opportunity.
Sounds like it. This past summer, you started a blog called Plumping Up Press, and I want to quote from one of your posts. "We can't afford to continue to lose generations of children to preventable causes. It is time to change the world, one tiny belly at a time." How does the blog fit in with your other initiatives?
The blog is a way for me to hopefully inspire others to take action. It was really reading online about childhood malnutrition that compelled me to begin the walk for Plumping It. So I was hoping that maybe one of my readers will be inspired in the same way. I also started the blog because this tremendous product existed and it's saving thousands of lives every day. But still, when I speak to audiences about it, it's really rare that someone raises their hand when I ask the question, has anyone ever heard of Plumping It? Which now, through the blog and through my work at Ithaca College, Plumping It is definitely starting to become a household name. I'm hoping to use this blog to reach people that I may never meet or never have the opportunity to speak to and inform them of its usefulness in ending malnutrition.
Do you have a hero in the world of philanthropic social activism?
For years, I have been reading Nicholas Kristof's articles in the New York Times, and this year, actually, fortunately, I was able to hear him speak twice. One was with the New York Women in Communications in New York City, and the other time, Food for Thought, the Ithaca College chapter, went to see him. And since I'd been reading his work for years, but finally being able to hear him speak, I was really convinced that this is a man to look up to. He's done amazing work in the field of humanitarian relief and just informing people about a lot of issues that people don't talk about. Things like human trafficking and child slavery and malnutrition even. One of his quotes that really stuck with me during his New York Women in Communications talk, he was talking about how he uses communications to hopefully change the hearts and minds of people. And he said when he was given this article or this space in the New York Times, at first he thought that it would be an opportunity for him to have people read something over their morning coffee. But then he said, no, this article space is something that people should be spilling their morning coffee over. He wanted to shock people with the things that go on in our world that we really aren't aware of. So his articles have provided a lot of inspiration and a lot of information for me that we use constantly at our Food for Thought meetings and just in daily life. I always look forward to his articles. So he's really been an inspiration and role model for me.
You've said that your nonprofit work has compelled you to reevaluate your career goals. I sense that that's in some way where you're heading with what you just said about Nick Kristof. What did you mean by that? How are you reevaluating your career goals, and where do you think that your involvement with Food for Thought is going to take you?
Right now, I'm an integrated marketing communications major. And really, before I started working for Food for Thought, I never thought about blending communications for humanitarian work. I always thought it was do one or the other. But working with Food for Thought has showed me how important it is to utilize my communication skills for this philanthropic work. I'd love to someday work for a nonprofit and use my communications background for advocacy work, because I've realized that effectively communicating a nonprofit's mission is the best way to inspire others to join in a cause. So I'm hoping to compel others in this way.
What's next for Food for Thought? Do you have any plans for expanding it over the next couple of years?
I would absolutely love to see Food for Thought grow to other campuses. I have a few friends from high school who are working to start chapters at their campuses. A couple people who are still at my old high school, they're going away to college now, and they've also expressed interest in starting chapters at their different schools. We still have a high school chapter in York that's definitely taking the Food for Thought mission to heart, so I'd love to see that expansion happen. At the Ithaca College chapter, we have two really big events coming up this semester. One of them is the Oxfam Hunger Banquet, and the other one is called Global Concern Student Workshop. The first semester that we were a campus organization, we focused a lot on fundraising, but this semester our new focus is on education, really just bringing to life some of these issues on campus and hoping to gain new members that will really help develop our organization while staying staying true to providing relief for children around the world.
I want to tell our listeners that you are also a founding member of an organization called She's the First, which empowers girls in the developing world through education. That is going to be the subject of another show for me. In your capacity there as a researcher, you've worked with schools from Ethiopia, Nepal, and Kenya. What kind of synergy, if any, is there between your work for She's the First and your Food for Thought effort?
She's the First has been a tremendous learning opportunity for me. I started with them before they were a nonprofit organization, and I've watched them grow so much over the past couple years. But I think that the greatest takeaway I've learned is the importance of creating a stellar team of dedicated volunteers. She's the First founder, Tammy Tibbetts, did an incredible job of finding young women. We actually have now, I think, one male on our team, but she did an incredible job of finding people who are knowledgeable in the field of women's education and humanitarian work. So we all really grow and learn from each other, and everyone has amazing advice and ideas, but it's really been amazing to see how She's the First has grown and to be a part of that change. And I think that's the greatest lesson I've learned, is just find volunteers who share your same passion and who are willing just to give their all to the work of that nonprofit. So using the strengths of volunteers to drive an organization to new levels is definitely what She's the First has shown me.
If people want to find out more about Food for Thought, where should they go?
Anyone interested in getting involved with Food for Thought or learning about our organization can check us out at icfoodforthought.webs.com, or they could also send us an email at icfoodforthought@gmail.com. We also have a Facebook page, a Twitter account, so we're all over the place, and there's definitely a way to get in touch with us. And we would love to hear from students, maybe if they have ideas or if they've heard of Plum Peanut. I'd love to hear that.
Well, Elizabeth, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking with you.
In her spare time, Elizabeth is a student trustee on the Ithaca College Board of Trustees, a senator in the Student Government Association, where she serves on the Communications and, not surprisingly, Community Service Committees. She's a Park Scholar, a Dean's List regular, and she's in the process of creating a social justice program to be offered through the college's Division of Interdisciplinary and International Studies. Shannon and Elizabeth, a pair of amazing and inspirational young women, and I am looking forward to seeing what they both accomplish in the years ahead. We'll have to check in for an update. You'll find photos, you'll find links to share and Food for Thought on the DIY World Improvement Show Facebook page, where you are free to like us. Thank you for joining us today. Started during your sophomore year in high school with an article you read in Cosmo Girl about the opportunity for some American teens to go on a mission to Africa. How do we get from you thumbing through a magazine to the foundation of Food for Thought?
For some reason, this article just really grabbed my attention.
I met the subject of my next interview, Elizabeth Stoltz, when she applied for a scholarship from the New York Women in Communications Foundation in 2009. She was a high school senior from York, Pennsylvania at the time. And one of the things that impressed me was that she'd founded a nonprofit organization called Food for Thought to help improve the lives of children around the world. In fact, she was the only student ever to graduate from her high school with more than 500 hours of community service. Starting to sound familiar? Today she's a sophomore majoring in integrated marketing communications at Ithaca College. I talked with Elizabeth before the spring term started. Elizabeth, it all
attention, but just because of the timing of things, and it wasn't really possible for me to pack up and leave for Africa right then, I started to think about what were some ways that I could help here at home but still provide some sort of relief to the children that I